G'day, my name's Joshua. This is a submission in support of my abstract submission for the BILT conference next year. This is in Brisbane, 2018. This is a 75-minute lab technical, 100% live demonstration for coders, and the title of my course is 5 Secrets for Revit API Development. My purpose here is to save you thousands of hours, possible man hours, in lost productivity. And if you know these 5 secrets, you are going to become a hell of a lot more efficient. Now, suitable for, who is this class suitable for? I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is suitable for everybody. Not just advanced, and not just gurus, and not just experts. I'm going to say everybody. The reason is some people really take to coding like a fish in water, and I don't think these people should be inhibited. I think that if you're curious about what that macro manager button does, and if you're curious about C# and how you can use it to make add-ins and automate your processes, then there should be nothing inhibiting you from going ahead and experimenting and playing around with it. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to do it today. I'm going to tell you my secrets, and I'm going to make you productive. Okay, so there are 2 things that you need in order to follow along with me. You need a installation of Revit. Right now I have just installed Revit 2018. I'm going to launch that now. You also need a this subdirectory of code snippets that we're going to be using. If you want to code along with me, here's everything that we'll be using. You can download it down there in the doobly-doob, and leave that open here, and right here is a fresh installation of Revit. I haven't even saved a project with this, so you're seeing what I'm seeing. And have you ever wondered what this macro manager button does on the toolbar? We're going to find out. So if we click on that without even having a project open, we're going to click create module. We're going to create ourselves a module, my module. On top of that, we're going to create ourselves a macro. When you click my module, a whole bunch of subdirectories are built in the background. It fires up the sharp develop window, and with that done, we're going to now click on macro, and we're going to say my macro, and that magically gets a bit of code to appear right here in your coding window, and we're going to paste in there the simplest possible program that we can use. We'll actually put this window over here, use this one, and in here we're going to paste in the simplest possible program, and it's going to be hello world dialog box. We're going to build that now, and we're going to test it. Click, run, hello world. And that, now, if you've followed me so far, you can now stick on your CV or your resume that you now have Revit API coding experience. You're welcome. Okay, we're going to move ahead, and we're going to see if we can replace that bit of very simple code with a bit more sophistication. And here we go. Paste that in there, build it, run it, see what happens. And now we have a bit more of a sophisticated dialog box. We're now a step beyond the simple one, and we have the choice of 2 things. We can say yes or no in response to this. The question is, do you want to be an awesome, all-powerful, all-knowing API coder? I certainly know I do. Let's click it and see what happens. You're cool. What happens if I click no? No, I'm in a comfortable vegetative state. Ignorance is bliss. Okay. Now, I'm going to reveal to you secret number 1 of Revit API coding, is that this window here, the sharp develop window, is a pre-installed IDE that comes with Revit. Now, if you're serious about coding, you'll want to switch it up to a much more advanced IDE coder such as Visual Studio. Visual Studio from Microsoft is a free to download application, but I'll warn you, it takes 2 hours to install. It is a large system commitment. For playing around, maybe Sharp Develop is better. In order to open your your module in Visual Studio, I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to open up. Now, when you created a module, it creates all these subdirectories, and here it is. There's my module subdirectory. Drill down into that. Your add-in and source. You're going to drill down to source, and there is a file called my module sln. Use that to open up in Visual Studio. So if you drag that onto Visual Studio, it will take you through an upgrade process, and then it should be set up. You should be able to start building and testing your software using the more advanced software. Now this course is not about Visual Studio, because I'm assuming you don't have it installed, so we're going to continue on with Sharp Develop, and I'm going to tell you what secret number 1 is. Even though Sharp Develop is a very crashy IDE, it is useful for a couple of things. One is setting up the references to the API. Now, what is the Revit API? It's actually just this. It's these two DLL files that from which you can call all your commands. And the Revit API and the Revit API UI, a couple are referenced in your bit of code over here, and this is referenced via a relative path. And the relative path is important if you want to save backwards. Relative paths are very important if your user doesn't have the Revit software installed on C drive, which sometimes happens. And it's also important if you want to copy your code back to previous versions of Revit. So if you're coding Revit 2018, you want to copy to 2017, 2016, 2015, depending on how backwards compatible you want your code to be. You need to copy it into each of these successive years, then launch it, build it, and there your add-in is now compatible with those previous years of Revit. It also sets up these directives here for you, which are incredibly useful. It sets up a transaction ID, and it also sets up an add-in ID. Sorry, it sets up a transaction mode, and then it sets up a transaction ID. Now this is incredibly useful to automate. So once you've done a setup using Sharp Develop, you then switch it over to a real IDE such as Visual Studio, and you've saved yourself a whole bunch of time, and that is secret number 1. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to move on to secret number 2, which is about rapid iteration and the invoke command. But in order to do that, we want to iterate by, we want to get our macro running as an external command, and we want it running up here from a button on the ribbon. So we're going to stick a button on the ribbon. So first, before we do that, we now need to customize, turn our macro into an external command, and we simply do that by adding a colon, external command, boom boom, to the end of that class declaration like that. Then we're going to modify our main subroutine in order to accept a UI document. Let's throw that into there. And I think we're ready to go. Yes, we also need an execute subroutine, because when your external command is activated from the ribbon, it then activates this class, it looks for the external subroutine, and then that in turn runs this subroutine, the main subroutine. So build that one, and we're going to take this window and stick it over there for later. We're going to iterate. We're going to iterate on this window. I'm going to stick it on my left-hand screen, because right now we're going to build ourselves a ribbon button. Now this is surprisingly easy. The way we do it is simply the same method we use by using the My module. And we're going to create another module, and this time we're going to call it My Ribbon. Now when you do that, another Sharp Develop window opens up. Here it is, and we're going to start playing with this and turn it into, now what is a ribbon button? A ribbon button isn't in fact an external application, or that is what it is called. It is called an iExternal application. So we're going to customize this new module and change it from a macro module into an external application module, and then we're going to add some directives at the top. The ribbon button itself is in fact a part of Windows, so we have to add in some references. We're going to add in references to Windows Presentation Core, Windows Base, Presentation Core, and the last reference here is going to be System XAML. Right there. Boom, and we're ready. Okay, a bit more customization here. Because it is now an external application, we need to add in an on startups routine and an on shutdown routine. And we're going to add in to the end of that an external event, which in fact calls the macro we created earlier. There it is. We're going to build that, make sure it works. There it is, built successfully. And I'm going to tell you the secret number 2. Secret number 2 is this command. In order to iterate rapidly, by that I mean you do not ever want to be shutting down and starting up Revit when you build your code. The most annoying thing and the breakthrough moment, eureka moment I had this year is the discovery of this thing here called invoke member. And that because the easiest way to run your external command is to add it as a reference. You don't have to do that. You can in fact use this called invoke member, and you can run it from memory, and this means you can build it as many times as you want, test it as many times as you want without ever shutting down Revit. In fact, in this class you'll never see me shut down Revit. You will never need a single reboot, and this fact alone is going to save you an enormous amount of time. There's one more thing we need to do in order to get our Revit button working, and this is to add an image. Of course, a button needs to have an image, so we're going to drill down into my ribbon, add in, and then copy this pre-prepared image to the correct dimensions right in there, and we're set to go. Now, moment of truth. We're going to, in order to get an add-in to work, this is an on-startup add-in, we're going to drill down to version 2018, and we're going to copy in an add-in file to there, and when you do that, this dialog box pops up and it says always load. We're going to click always load, and there it is. Up there is called my ribbon button, the button that we have just created. It is there. It has been grayed out because you need to have a project open in order for it to work. So we're going to open up a project now, just a blank project, metric. Did I click metric or empirical? I think I clicked empirical by accident. Okay, I'll just close down. We'll open up metric instead, in case it doesn't work out. Here we go, metric. Alright, so I've opened up a metric project, and we're going to test our button, see if it works. And it does. So we're confronted with our message with two choices. Do you want to be awesome, more powerful, or knowing Revit API coder? Yes I do, show me the way. Now, secret number 2, using the invoke command, is to how to rapidly iterate without having to restart Revit all the time. I'm going to show you this as we speak. We're going to iterate this code, we're going to reveal this code, and then we're going to build it and see what happens. There we go, I've made my edits. I'm going to build it right now, test it. You just iterate it. Did you go build to test in under 2 seconds? I think that was a little bit over 2 seconds. Practice makes perfect. We're going to try that again. Build, back over here, test. Did you go build to test in under 2 seconds? That was under 2 seconds, and well done. Okay, so we're going to move on to secret number 3 now. But in order to do that, we first need a bit of interaction on our, I think we've been a bit of interaction with our database, I think. So we have been confronted with a completely blank screen. By commenting out these things here, and we're going to reveal some lines here, and we're going to make ourselves a brand new class and copy in a pre-prepared class I have for you. And all this does will draw one of every line weight and one of every line pattern in the project, and it will give us something to display on screen for the purposes of this tutorial. So here we go, build that one. Here we go. Let's do something. Do you want to draw line patterns or line weights? Let's draw some line patterns. Let's draw some line weights. There we go. So this is a bit of automation. It goes through and gets every one of your line weights. There's every one of the 16 line weights available in Revit. And here is one of the patterns. You can have an infinite number of patterns. These are the ones that are available in the default project settings. Okay, so we're going to move on to secret number 3. What is secret number 3? And I'm going to tell you right now what secret number 3 is. What we're looking at, is a modal form. Secret number 3 is, instead of using a modal form, we want to use a modeless form. Why? Why do we want to use a modeless form? Because the modeless form allows the user interaction with the screen. You notice I can't pan or zoom anywhere on this screen until this damn error message, until this dialog box has gone away. Now I can pan and zoom. But if it comes back, I can't pan and zoom. So we want to have these options available to us without having to pan and zoom. So without having our access to the model broken. So we're going to do that now. To do that, we're going to do a bit of form design. We're going to make ourselves a brand new form, add new item, Windows application form, create. Here's a brand new form. We're going to copy and paste in some pre-prepared code. There it is, and we're going to do a little bit of form design. Let's make ourselves 3 buttons. 3 buttons. Button number 1, button number 2, button number 3. Let's customize these buttons. We're going to call this first button Draw Line Patterns. We're going to call this second button Draw Line Weights. And we're going to go on a third button. This is a future button we're going to be using. We're going to call those common error messages. One last thing we need to do to adjust our form is, of course, we're going to make it topmost, because modal forms always have to be topmost. And we change that down here, topmost. And we also have to throw in a bit of code to make the buttons work, of course. It's that one. I'm going to come back here, double click on that one, throw in a bit of code for that button, come back in here, double click on that one, and throw in a bit of code for that button. Alrighty, we're set to go. Let's build it and see if it compiles. It does. I have successfully built this code, and we're going to see what a modeless form looks like. Hang on, we've got one thing. We have to actually show the form. The difference here, okay, that there is the modeless form. A modal form, I'll show you that now. That's, my modal form is my form with show dialog instead of just show. I don't like show dialog, I like using just show. So we'll build that now and see what happens, eh? There it is, there's the form we just created. And we now have full pan and zoom and mode and project navigation available to us. But do the buttons work? Draw line patterns, draw line weights, draw line patterns, draw line weights. Yes, the buttons do work. And that is secret number 3, use modeless forms. Now, I am going to tell you secret number 4. I'm going to tell you right now, and that is you want to, the metaphor I'm using for a secret number 4 is the Russian doll configuration of external events inside try-catch statements inside transactions. In order to get modeless forms, we have to use to work. You need to use external events. So we're going to pretend that's our external event, at the outer layer of Russian doll. We're going to open up that Russian doll. We're going to see our try-catch statements for handling error messages. We're going to open up that, and then inside that we have our transaction. We're going to open up that, and we have our going to pretend that this object here is our interaction with the database. So let's go over that now. Okay, what are we trying to achieve with the interaction with the database by pressing this button? So by pressing this button, we're going to take you over 3 of the most common error messages. But what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to change a parameter. We're just trying to change a we're going to try and change a project parameter, and it's just going to be the title of the project. We don't want to do it via the manage button. We're going to do it codely. So we're going to throw in just a default title block here. Away it goes. Okay, this is your company name, your company address here, and project. So in this project, we want to title our project Space Elevator. We want to make this change codely. Okay, so, and that is an edit to a parameter. But in order to do this, we're going to break through the 3 layers of the most difficult error messages you're going to encounter in your API journey. So let's try and I'll reveal these to you now, and I'm going to tell you how to deal with them. Okay, so common error messages, double click on there. Okay, so build that. Let's see what happens just without doing anything. My ribbon button, build it. Okay, so this is a horrible error message. Unhandled exception. Whenever you see this error message, usually the very next thing you're going to see is this error message here, and it's going to be this one. A fatal error has occurred, the application will be terminated, and you have the opportunity to save recovery files for all your change projects. Would you like to save a recovery file? So how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to, because we can't keep crashing Revit, and we have to be able to work without these program crashes. How are we going to deal with it? We're going to put that we're going to put it inside a try-catch statement. Try, catch, finally. Try, catch, finally. And that's where we put all our database interactions. And so we're going to run that one, and we're going to test it and see what happens. Same error message. Obviously I didn't quite get that right. Okay. I don't think it built properly, so we'll try building that again. Away it goes, and we'll see what happens now. Here it is. Okay, so we now have we still get an error message now, but it's a much nicer error message, and we have now handled this exception within the coding environment. This will not crash your machine, this will not crash your software. And now we have, and that is what you have to do to handle that first horrid error message. And now, we're going, there it is again, try, catch, and then finally. Right, now we're going to move on to the second most horrid error message. And I'm going to reveal this to you right now. And this error message says, if it finishes, it's about to come up. Here it is. Starting a transaction from an external application running outside API codecs is not allowed. Now this error message happened because we're using a Modeless form. Now how do you deal with this? By sticking your stuff inside external events. Okay, so we're going to make ourselves an external event now. And it's not as difficult, although this was the most difficult thing I learned. I'm going to show it, it took me months to learn how to do this. I'm going to show it to you in a couple of minutes. So here we go. We're going to create ourselves a new class. It will be automatically named class 2. We're going to throw in some code I pre-prepared earlier for you. This will be class 2 code. Throw that in there. And now we're going to, now you know this class is an external event because it has that iExternal event handler right there. And how are we going to run this from our form button? So we're going to run it by, first we need to declare it, then we need to activate it. So a declaration for the external command. Here they are. That is called a declaration. That goes right after your right after the form declaration. And we also need an initializer, and that goes right after initialize component part of the form, right there. Going to come down, back down to here, and we're going to comment out this and reveal this raise command that makes the makes the external event happen. Built that baby, and then come back into here and see what happens. We're going to be confronted with error message number 3, and it is simply attempt to modify model outside of transaction. So now we've got our stuff inside an external command. There's one last thing we need to do. Thankfully this is a relatively easy fix, and it is just simply to stick your database interaction inside a transaction. So there it is. There's our transaction. Our transaction is called modify project name. It starts there, it commits there, and there's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the project name to space elevator. So now that I've now we're going to build that one, and see if we can get it to go. Boom, and at long last we have changed our database. We have dealt with the 3 most common error messages, that is, and we've done it via the methods of this, by the metaphor of this Russian doll thing. So we're going to go over secret number 4 one more time for you. There's your database interaction. You want to put that inside your transaction. There's your transaction. You want to put that inside your try-catch statement. Here's your try-catch statement. That's the middle layer. Just like that. And now you want to put your try-catch statement inside your external event, and that is the final outer layer, your external event. And there we have it. That is your nested structure of how to use the back-end code when using Modeless forms. Secret number 5, the last secret. The last secret, I'm not even going to do any coding for you for this, I'm just going to explain it for you. When I got into coding, I noticed that things started working a lot more smoothly the sooner I involved others in your project. As you can see, this code stuff can really take you down some rabbit holes, and it can really quite often you get so involved with the coding you forget the whole reason you're doing it in the first place, and you're trying to make, you're trying to automate, you're trying to make more money, and you're trying to add more intelligence to your projects and add custom value. and you can't lose sight of those facts. The quality of a project depends on the buy-in from others and the feedback you get from others. When we started collaborating with our Dunedin office, we're trying to standardize our back-end systems, but I noticed that you just can't work on something in isolation and then just present it to someone and expect them to buy into it. You have to you have to seek the criticism, the critique, and the feedback from others in your company, in your community, as soon as you possibly can, in order to enhance the value of your add-in. And I noticed that it's hard because quite often the feedback is not something is not kind. I'll just say that lightly, but sometimes it's valuable. But the moment you get collaboration, the moment you start collaborating with others, quite often your idea of what your project does changes. Your design intent changes. The image that you had of what it does changes. So collaboration and buy-in from others is key, and is secret number 5. It sort of sounds like common sense, but the first year I started doing this, I never talked to others about it, and I learnt that the hard way. That you got to do that pretty much from the get-go as soon as you possibly can. Alright, that's the end of my presentation. I'm a very soft-spoken person. In a classroom environment, I'd be projecting my voice, I'd be a hell of a lot louder. This is also, this is just going to stretch out into a 75-minute lab very easily, and in a noisy environment with the distractions and questions and a lot of eye contact, and trying to get through this may actually be a struggle to get it done in 75 minutes, but I can cut it down and make it shorter if required. Good luck with your API coding journey. I'm here for you, and good luck, man, and goodbye.